Today we're going to talk about a brand called Sitivien. Now, up to this point, there really wasn't much to talk about. I wasn't overly impressed, even though they are very inexpensive. So this is an example of a knife that they make. It has micarta with steel liners that are not hollowed out, a pretty generic pocket clip, but it does have 14C28N. This is the ST130. The problem was when I got this, it was incredibly gritty. Like there was clearly some debris inside the bearings. I had to eventually clean them out. And now it does function and functions fine. It's not the best knife in the world, but for $30, it's acceptable. Now, I have kept my eye on this company though, and I have been looking for different knives that they make. Now, for a while, this knife was actually only $20, but it's an incredibly impractical and kind of silly knife design. It has a really small handle, a 3-inch blade, 14C28N, but what caught my eye is that at the time it was like $17. That does not function, by the way, not in any real capacity. So I said, okay, fine, whatever. And I moved on. And then but you know, being that I'd like to know what things are about, I tried more knives. Now this one makes a lot more sense. It's the right size. It's a little bit bigger. The problem is that all of these little wavy things, they're not particularly functional. You can kind of use them as a fuller for flicking, but not really. It's not that great. It's mostly for looks. Now, they're clearly trying to appeal to a specific type of audience with this, but because it was, what, $19 at the time? I think it's a little bit more expensive, like $25. I was interested, especially because of that right there, 14C28N. If you don't know what that is a Swedish-made Sandvik steel that is one of the top budget steels. You'll see them in Sitivien that are around the $70 price point. So very good steel choice. The heat treatment, well, it's been pretty consistent, but not necessarily tested fully on this particular brand. This particular knife has another problem, which is that it's actually recurve. That does not pose an issue for me when I'm sharpening on the Ken Onion blade grinder, but it does come up. What I do like is that it did not come with any grittiness, and it does have a nice drop shut action with a relatively decent, comfortable handle. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they are not completely flush with the steel liners, but I am being awfully nitpicky with this knife. That's kind of what I do. But not bad, we're getting there. It's starting to get a little better. Then we move on to this thing. And actually, this is the first one I go, okay, yeah, I could recommend this, especially at the right price point. The ST144, once again, 14C28N, a straight blade this time, with a design that is pretty neutral in nature. Still has those protruding frames, which is not what I might prefer, but actually not bad. In fact, pretty comfortable on this one. Decent action, decent detent, no up and down or side to side play. Yeah, this was fine, about 25 bucks. And honestly, for $25, I buy it. I buy it. I think that's really good. And we're getting there. We're starting to find the right combination. But these three are all older models, including this one. In fact, you can find this rebranded under a different couple brands. This knife, on the other hand, this is something different. It's almost like they changed OEMs. I don't know what the deal is, and that's why I want to talk about it. It's a whole different ball game with this knife. So I'm just going to do a quick walk around. Notice that the liners are actually flush and hollowed out. They're even with the G10. It's actually G10, not micarta, although it looks amazing. Really well done all the way around, including the back spacer. It is right hand only, but it has a decent pocket clip. Now, here's where things get good. This detent is absolutely perfect. Yeah, not just good. This is better than most knives, more than 3 times its cost, actually. I've had knives over $150 that do not compare to this. Now the blade on this is pretty substantial, almost a 4-inch cutting edge here. Seriously, almost 4 inches of cutting edge. And this time, not D2, not 14C28N. This knife comes in with K110. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, just like the fact that 14C is only made in one place, it's made in Sweden, Böhler K110 is made in Germany. And it is a better variant of D2 than you will find pretty much anywhere else. The thing about it is that when you order D2 from a manufacturer, if you don't know that manufacturer very well, they could be sourcing that D2 from almost anywhere, and the quality of that steel is going to vary wildly. And on top of that, there's a heat treatment issue that has to be overcome if you don't know the formulation exactly. But with Böhler K110, all they have to do is follow a very specific combination criteria, and you have what is basically a perfect heat treatment. Now look at the action on this thing. No detent lash, just freaking flawless. And the craziest part about this is a $30 knife, $29.99 for this thing right now. It is a better action than I have seen on knives, more than twice its cost. The edge comes down to a beautiful thin edge. I did test this blade and the sharpness. It's far sharper than any other knife I've gotten from this company. And the grind is very, very even. It even has a proper sharpening choil. I don't know what happened with this brand. I don't. I'm not sure what they did, but I'm kind of now wanting to understand which knives came in about the same time. They have a bunch of different models, but this essentially is a different company. That's what this knife feels like. And as of right now, this puts it well into maybe the top 3 knives at the $30 price point. Most of the knives I know of in K110 are around the $50 mark. The company that uses this quite often is going to actually be Petrified Fish, and my experience with that steel is so good that it has softened me up to liking D2 a little bit more. But now I'm very, very particular, and I do find that K110 seems to perform better than the other formulations. And my guess is it's because the heat treatment is well established. Like, you don't have to guess. So the companies are creating better knives with that steel. It may have a slight performance improvement over standard D2, but I doubt it's really measurable. But no, the fact is that this is one of the best knives I have ever seen. From them, for sure. As far as Sitivien is concerned, if they continue to perform and make knives like this, we have something to talk about. And with something like this at 30, it creates a different context for all other knives. And I think that is why it's worth mentioning. Just like the Mini Praxis from Sitivien at $30 is format defining, this is another knife at this price point that is absolutely doing the same thing. So full flat grind, by the way, in case you're wondering, it is not a hollow grind, although a hollow grind would actually be pretty sweet on this. But nice stout tip, but really just done so well. And I kind of like that they have a coating on it, or I think it's they have a coating on it outside of the actual blade itself, so that all of the components on the inside that are harder to keep dry or clean, they may not get spotting as easy. And D2 is not a stainless steel, so really nice that they have that. I mean, the action is just insane. I don't want to say much more. This one, what's the model here? The ST152, this thing is insane. This thing is actually legit. And I also like that they shrank the size of all that text. Thank you for doing that, because it was really obnoxious on the other ones. I will be continuing to explore knives from this company, but I'll be looking for something of this quality. At this point, I no longer want to see any of this. I want to see this. And I'm happy to pay $30 for what I'm getting here. In fact, this is $32. Just give me this quality with that steel at $30, and I am going to be a very, very happy person. And please continue to use more K110. That is much preferable, and it gives me a better idea of, what it's going to come out as. I'm going to get better heat treatments. I'm going to get better performance. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for stopping in. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon.